Hello and welcome to the channel. Incredibly excited to bring you all a guest, Mr. Kerry Jude. He's an avid e-skater, but most importantly, he has just produced an excellent film entitled 828. And this film got my attention because I saw somebody creating a film about e-skate. But as I watched this video, I was able to see that this video was much more than about e-skate. And this film is really about a story of redemption, self-care, mental health, and the importance of having an outlet. So in your own words, tell the audience, what is this film about?
It's basically a journey of dealing with grief and mental illness through adventure. E-skate was the vehicle, but 2020, like a lot of us, beat me up pretty good. Lost both my parents and a friend to suicide. My aunt, even my cat died. I lost my job. It's like a country song, you know? And at the beginning of 2021, I was just kind of a wreck, and I was like, I got to do something or I'm just going to lose my mind. And got a couple of friends on the hook to take this trip with me to Iceland so I could make an attempt to go all the way around the island on an electric skateboard.
Yeah, and as I was watching the video, you dived very deep and you gave me permission to ask those tough questions. And you talk a lot about depression. You talk a lot about suicide. And you talk about how this pandemic and almost like this horrific perfect storm happens to you with the loss of the job, those type of things. So why is it that you decided to be so vulnerable? Why is it that you decided to share this so much information like this? What was the rationale behind it?
I think it was a complete lack of rationale. I was wrecked, man. I was a puddle on the floor, and I found that when I got out on my board at the time, I was riding just a little boosted stealth board. I would go out and ride on that, and I would just feel better. My mind would feel clear. To address my grief, to interact with other people. And I'd like to say it was like a very conscious decision, but it was like I was just so wrecked that when Drew Garcia, who directed the film, turned the camera on me, he's like, just say what you're thinking. I just said what I was thinking. I just did it. Mm-hmm. And in retrospect now, it's been very clear to me like what the purpose of this film is, even though I didn't know going into it, which is to help others to find what makes them feel better, help others to find their own adventure, their own Iceland, to get through some hard times, because I'm not the only one suffering in the last few years. I think this is a very common story with just different details. And I think a lot of us are looking for a way to ride through the storm of the last few years.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because as I was watching the video or the film, to me, it was almost like this film was therapy in some ways. And when you talk about the pandemic, and I remember when the pandemic initially hit as well, I had a buddy of mine who actually passed away from COVID. And I remember it so vividly because he posted on his social media. He was a relatively young guy, around my age, around our age, healthy and stuff like that. And, I just thought he was going to recover. And I didn't even call him. And then 3 days later, he passed. And I just remember, like yourself, the only thing, when COVID first hit, they shut down everything. And the only thing that I was able to do with my family was ride. And we literally would ride 4 or 5 days a week because, like you said, you can't just sit up in the house, social isolation. It's not a good thing on one's, mental well-being. So it's interesting that you say that. Now, when you talk about this whole transition of e-skate, it's an interesting film because you didn't decide to ride an e-skate in your community to do this film. You decided that you were going to take on this crazy journey in a whole different country, and then it had a whole host of challenges to even make that happen. So let's just talk about what country you decided on, why you chose that country. I remember you pointing out the type of board that you had, the troubles that you had getting the board over there. So let's just give the people a little bit about what you was thinking and what actually transpired.
So Iceland has always been on my mind. I'm a photographer and a cinematographer. I work in film and documentary. And Drew Garcia, again, the guy that directed this, he and I both had talked before about like how cool it'd be to go to Iceland. We need some kind of project. And so when I started riding a lot, my gears got turning. I was like, this would be the perfect thing to do over in Iceland. The loop around the road is 828 miles, and at the time I was riding a lot. I was logging 100-mile days several times a week. I think I logged about 550 miles in one of my biggest training weeks. And I thought, you know what, 828 miles might not be that hard. It's doable. And it just came down to like Drew and I. I even thought I might go and do it by myself without a crew. Just take a couple of GoPros and maybe make a couple of YouTube videos while I was there. But Drew got on board and he was like, yeah, let's go do this. And I think every asshole with a camera wants to go to Iceland. It's just so beautiful. You can just point a camera any direction and push the shutter and you're going to get a pretty picture pretty much.
And I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And there was some struggles in it. You know, the board, because of the watt hours, it's not easy to ship something like that. When you guys got there, you had the wrong charger. You couldn't charge the board. You know, and it was like one thing after the other, but then we also got a chance to kind of see the vulnerability, right? Because you're wondering, am I going to get this done? I've invested so much monetarily, I've invested so much emotionally, but these challenges came along. And you had a saving grace because somebody over there, I guess, had a relationship with LaCroix or something like that. And you were able to kind of meet up with them and they kind of saved the day a little bit.
Yeah. So LaCroix, I told them about the project and they were excited about it. They were actually really supportive. And they helped with the shipping. But the only person any of us knew though was they had found a customer that they'd sold a board to a few years earlier named Roman. And they just reached out to him and said, hey, we got this guy coming to Iceland. Can he ship his board to you? And there's a whole mess of back and forth, which is even still getting the board shipped. These things are not easy to transport. Exactly. It's fine if you're like in the continental US and you're just going to ship it ground. And I think you can ship it on a ship with that battery, but you just don't know if it's going to get there in 4 weeks or 4 months. So that wasn't really a great option because I needed to train as late as I could until we shipped the board.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of trials, and the trials turned out to be the story, you know, they really did. And they turned out to be the therapy, like you mentioned, for me and not just me, but Cornell, my buddy that's on the trip with me, he lost his mom right in between me losing my mom and dad. And Mark, the other guy that was with us, he lost his cousin just a few months before that. And then Drew's story is really interesting to me. He is an up and coming director. You know, he was getting networked into like the Hollywood studios before the pandemic hit.
Wow. And
when the pandemic hit, they just weren't really interested in taking chances on the new up and comers. They just wanted to use tried and true. And so his career, and so his career kind of was just put on hold for that entire year. And so for all of us, this was our way of getting out and moving again, getting out and creating again, and just fueling our own fires, and then hopefully coming back with something that'll inspire others to do the same.
Amazing. And I like that you mentioned them because several of the buddies that you brought along, they had interesting stories as well. Talk a little bit about the interactions of how your personal relationships with them contributed to the film, because I know that one of your buddies, I believe that he had contemplated suicide, and there was a pretty dope track that he created that was kind of featured in the film. And I loved how you guys showed him like rapping the song a cappella, and then it just like smoothly transitioned into where you can actually hear like the completed version of the track. But you brought along these people, and to me they added so much value, and they were just interesting as well as the film progressed. So just kind of talk about how you decided to choose them, and in your opinion, how you felt they added value to the film, because I definitely think that they did.
Yeah, well, Cornell in particular was huge. He's a good friend of mine that I've known for about 10 years. I've produced music for him. I've directed music videos for him, and we've just had a lot of shared experience. And like I said, he lost his mom shortly after I lost mine. But I think honestly, I probably took a lot of cues from him as far as opening up and being vulnerable. He's battled with alcoholism, and he's 3 years sober now. And when he started getting sober, he was just so open and honest about it. And at first I was like, man, like, keep your shit to yourself, kind of. And not like in a, but I mean, like he would like post these inspirational things on social media. I was like, man, you really want all that out there? And then after time, I saw how much it improved his life and how much him sharing inspired other people who even came to him and said, like, talk to me about getting sober. I need to get sober. And so in a sense, like, you know, dealing with clinical depression or an addiction like alcohol is a very similar mindset. So you get in a similar feedback loop. So Cornell was a huge part of me kind of letting go to just open up and say what I was really thinking. And that was monumental. He's a really good friend. Whenever I watch that back, I'm just really lucky I know that guy.
Yeah.
He's put up with a lot of my crap. So
it was absolutely amazing. And then you know, just even I like how a lot of the video was just shot overall. I think you chose the right guy to direct the video or whatnot. It was just like an amazing story, you know, overall, when you just talk about a story of redemption, mental health, and all these things, and how something like ESK8 could address those type of things. Because I personally know a lot of people that I know now because of ESK8. I know people in other countries. I'm talking to you because of ESK8. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know other people in other countries because of ESK8, you know, other cities, other states. So it's just been like kind of an amazing, you know, transformational experience for me as well. I know that the film has actually won a couple of awards. I want to talk about that next, but I want to ask, what is your favorite scene in the film? Well, like, if you had to choose like one scene, right? What would you say was like your favorite moment in the film?
Oh, yeah, I have a favorite scene for sure. And it's a scene that we called, in the editing room, we called it Radio Confessions. And it's a scene where it's just all writing and we're battling rain. And what we did is Drew would ask me questions from inside the van over the radio. And so I could just be talking over the radio inside my helmet, just stream of conscious, like exactly what I was thinking, exactly what I was feeling. And so he put together this really beautiful montage a few days into the trip with those recordings of my voice over the radio. And when he put that together, I was just like, wow, like I get goosebumps even thinking about it, because it's just so raw. There was a little bit of a disconnect. I didn't have the camera looking at me. I didn't have my friends standing there, you know, while I'm being asked questions. It was just over the radio. Drew says, talk about this. And I just go on. And for some reason that segment just, oh man, it's just so beautiful. And it's like, wow, that's me doing that. That's so cool, you know?
Yeah, I mean, dude, like that was one of my favorite scenes too, was like kind of the back and forth conversations that you had. But I loved how it was edited when you first took off, and you would hear like the chatter over the radio, and then the way the music was, it almost sounded like a spaceship launch, right? So you guys are getting ready to go, and I was just like, man, that was so dope. But then, as you said, they would ask the questions while you were writing, and it almost had like this feeling like you were in a completely different place, radio and commuting back to, you know, the motherland. You know what I'm saying? Like, having that conversation and dialogue, and being able to kind of see the rawness of it, which was really dope. I know that you guys have won a couple of awards or have entered some what do you call it, film festivals. Talk to me about that, or talk to the audience.
Yeah, so it's been in 2 film festivals so far, even though we haven't done the official premiere yet, which is actually just a few weeks away here in Boise, Idaho. But we were accepted and the film was screened at a festival called Labeled Festival. And it's basically all creators and subjects relating to mental health. And so that was like the first place it played. And that was really cool, because me and Cornell went down and did a Q&A afterwards. And the conversations it started, especially in that environment, were amazing. People were just so eager to ask about, you know, you've been so open about this stuff, and it helped them, I think, to open up, because people came up to us afterwards and were telling us crazy things about their lives that they related to the story. And then the second film festival it's gone to is the Grand Teton Film Festival, and man, they had some really great documentaries this year, but 828 won Best Documentary. which is crazy to me. Like, it's just, you know, we're just some hillbillies from Idaho with a camera and a skateboard that, yeah, people are starting to pay attention, which is cool. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's pretty amazing, man. I love it. You know what I'm saying? As a creative person myself, I don't know if we talked about it, but you know, I've been an author and a speaker for a while, but you know, recently my son and I, we published a children's book about electric skateboarding, and it's kind of about our journey of learning how to ride electric skateboards. But all of it started, and I'm sure that this is very similar to you. Our very first children's book together was about our journey of learning how to ride skateboards, and it was scary because I'm in my mid-30s, and my son, we were at this really nice skate park called Old Fourth Ward Skate Park that was built by Tony Hawk. And my son was like, Dad, I want to skateboard. And I'm like, dude, I'm in my mid-30s. I've never skated in my life, right? So I'm just thinking about all of the things that could go wrong. Broken bones, you know, I'm just thinking about all of this stuff. But I said, not only am I going to buy you a skateboard, but I bought myself one. And I remember we went on this journey of just trying to ride regular skateboards. And I bought all of this like protective gear. You know, I had the wrist guards, elbow pads, knee pads. My sister was like, dude, you out here looking like RoboCop. Because, you know, at the skate park, people don't be having all that on. So I'm out there completely geared up. But because of that, getting uncomfortable, doing something I had never done in my life, doing something, you know, kind of in my mid-30s, where a lot of people, they kind of don't tend to do things that are different and new as you get older in life. But from that, we wrote our very first children's book, and we've written a lot since then. So I know that probably writing this film, there was probably some of that feeling here too, because it's like, am I going to be too vulnerable? Are people going to look at me differently? Because now they get to see this part of my life that they may not have known. So if you were, you know, going to talk to somebody about, you know, stepping out there, whatever that is for that person, whether they're starting a new job or whatever, like what advice would you give somebody who's feeling like kind of more in a vulnerable state, doesn't know if they want to step out there and do it?
Yeah. Gosh, I think Cornell said it best when he just describes it as a leap of faith. It's, and to me, I would add on to that, like life is really short, you know, 50, 60 years, you and I probably won't be, you know, still kicking. And all we really get is the experiences we have and the moments that we're in. I think that I probably do have a tendency to be a little bit of a risk taker by nature, but I think facing mortality and being able to savor whatever experience you're in at the moment is really important. That's something that really drives me. And I think just making a choice to get outside of your comfort zone, making a choice to do something like you said that's going to change your perspective. I mean, learning to skateboard in your mid-30s is no joke.
Not at all.
That sounds like a lot of broken bones, you know. And I've been skating since I was a little kid, but still new to ESK8, which is still a little bit, you know, mechanically a little bit different. But yeah, it's the only way to know is to go, and you don't get a lot of time on this planet, so you may as well do something memorable and meaningful to you, at least.
Yeah. I have a mentor. He always says stuff to me like, he had this statistic on the number of people in the world that write books, and it's like less than like 1% or something like that, some low number. And he's like, you're in the top 1%, right? And then he would talk about how your book will outlast you, right? The things that you've done will completely outlast you. 50, 60 years from now, you won't be here, but your book will be on somebody's bookshelf. And this film is the exact same way, right? So in 30, 40,
Yeah.
you know, 50, 60 years, we may not be here, but this film, you know, the experiences, the things that you've shared, this film could impact people on a whole nother level, you know. So how does that feel? Have you ever done anything like this where it's like what you've done could impact people years down the line, but then in other countries, other places? Like, what does that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've done most of my adult life as a freelancer, as a musician, and I think it's part of the creative mind. We want to leave some sort of artifact saying, "Damn it, I was here," you know, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I don't know if this is an artist thing, but I think we're more afraid of being forgotten than we are of being dead. And I think that that's a driver for for a lot of creative people. And I don't know where that comes from, or if it's something that's learned or something that's just hereditary or inherent when you're born as a creative. But I think we're all creative when we're little kids. We just kind of tend to let go of that over time as responsibilities stack on top of us.
Exactly. No, I definitely agree with that. I guess as we kind of discuss this some more, maybe some lightheartedness, or is there anything else you want to mention or talk about the film before we kind of get into some of the more lighter conversations and such? I wanted to know, what was your first electric skateboard?
So the first one I rode was a boosted Stealth.
Yep.
And one of the main motivations for getting that was that you could brake with it. So there's this giant mountain hill. It's about 4,000 feet in elevation that I ended up training with a lot on my La Croix. But I would have a friend drive me up to the top of that, and then I could ride down it without having to worry about, sliding around some corner and off a cliff.
Yeah.
So it was like for me, it was kind of a hybrid of having both a powered board, but also having a safer downhill board. And then from there, I knew I needed more mileage. I wanted something that was a little softer on my feet. So I knew I wanted pneumatic tires, and I got a Baja board G4,
Yep.
which is such a fun board. That board feels a lot like riding a surfboard. It has a very sort of mushy but like flowy feel to it. And then that didn't quite have enough range because I wanted to be doing, 7,500 mile days in Iceland. And that's when La Croix came out with their Lone Star Super Sport, and I just said, please take my money.
Yes. We have,
and that made it.
Go ahead.
Oh, that board that board made the trip possible. It made it very easy and possible to do 100+ mile days. I could stop and charge once and I'd be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a buddy out here. He has a Lone Star as well. And the range is kind of crazy because, they have almost EUC type range, 50, 60, 70 miles, which is absolutely, crazy stuff right there.
Yeah.
My first board was actually like a while ago. I bought a while ago and I loved it so much. And when I first got it, don't judge me, y'all, when y'all watch the video. So I got it, and my son would ride the regular board, and I would pull him while I was on the electric board.
That's
right?
so cool.
Real slow, right? Helmets and all, pads and everything. But as we loved it so much, I went ahead and I said, you know what, let me make an investment. I bought another board so we can both have our own electric skateboards. And then it's just been crazy since then. And, we've ridden, all kind of stuff. He's ridden La Croix boards, and I've ridden, we just ridden the whole gamut in addition to, EUCs. But it's been amazing because of the community that we've been able to kind of find from it. And it's just been like a great process. How has the community received the film overall? You would say, like, people who've heard about the film.
Pretty good, I think. What really surprised me, even before we got to Iceland, I shared some of the background and why I was doing the trip, and it was amazing how many riders that I didn't know, in the different e-skate forums, when they saw that, were like, "Yo, I started riding when I was getting sober, and it really helped me." Or I started riding when my dad died, or like even one guy said that his daughter had died. Like, a lot of people had similar stories, and they were using it as, whether they meant to or not, they were using it as a kind of therapy. And I was a little worried that I would make this film and people would be like, "Oh, it's an action, adventure film," which it certainly is, but that's not really the story. And I've found a lot of people just really excited to talk about it. People showing up in my DM saying, "Hey, I saw why you're doing this." And like one guy even said, like, I'm battling cancer right now, and the only time I feel, any of that mental relief is when I'm out riding my board. And it's, so it's so far it seems like people are receiving it well. Because I think we're all, especially people that are willing to get on a skateboard that can go 45 miles an hour or an EUC, we're a little tweaked in the head.
We're different. You know what I'm saying? We're different.
Yeah. We're definitely, cut from a different cloth, a similar cloth. And it's crazy how different the people that I've met in the PEV world are, and how we just have these odd common threads. And so far it seems like people, not that a lot of people have seen it yet, but a lot of people in the e-skate community are really pushing for it. And it's hard for me because we don't have distribution in place. We don't know or can't announce yet where it's going to be streaming or when. But yeah, I've got a lot of people saying, when can I see this freaking movie already?
Yeah.
So I have that conversation a lot. So I think once it's out there for the general public, I think we're gonna see a lot of really cool conversations happening between people.
I think so as well. And the other thing I think that this film has the potential to do is allow people to be comfortable having tough conversations, right? Because the film is giving people a little bit like the best of both worlds. You know, people are sitting down, they may be talking about ESK, or we're talking about a tough subject, but then there's also this element of coolness and things that are going on. Because especially as men, you know, men don't like to sit down and get mushy, right? But if you have something like this, there's a combination where we are having a serious conversation, or there is a serious conversation or subject matter going on, but then also it's presented in a way that's digestible, right? And I think that the film could do, you know, really big stuff. Like, I think it's amazing. I can't wait to see where to be streaming. I had the privilege, you were kind enough to allow me to see the whole thing, you know, because at first we were talking about, you know, trailers and stuff, and he was like, you want me to send over to her? I said, man, yeah. And I was like, I won't share it with nobody, you know, I promise. Nobody will know about it, right? And so I appreciate you trusting me with that, because I know that a project like this is art, this is your intellectual property, and you know, I respect that. So I want to thank you for allowing me to check it out.
Yeah, no, thank you for taking the time to watch it. It just makes the interview, we can cut right to the, you know, to the real stuff, and I thought that was important for you to see that.
Yeah. And as we wrap it up, is there anything else you want to share about the film, or also give the people maybe your social media as well, so that if they want to connect with you or get more information or things like that, it's easy for them to do so?
Yeah, we're on Instagram and Facebook, and it's 828 Documentary on both platforms. You can see all the news as it comes out. Anytime like we win an award or get into another festival, we announce it within minutes usually, because we're just so excited and surprised, I guess, by how well it's being received at this point.
Man.
So those are the places to find it. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking time to meet with me about this. On my channel, you know, I do motivational speaking, and I started doing the ESK stuff a lot, you know, because of the pandemic, but I still like to have those substantive conversations on the channel, because I just think it's important to do that. So thank you so much for joining me. And I always love to leave people with this one when I end my videos. I will see you at the top, because the bottom is too crowded. Peace.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.